Hi, everyone. I'm really glad you're here today. I want to share something honest with you. Not as a teacher, not as someone with a big YouTube channel, but just as a person who once struggled a lot. When people see me now, they often think my English journey was smooth, like I always spoke confidently, like I always understood everything. But the truth is, I gave up many times. At the beginning, English felt too difficult. I couldn't understand native speakers. Grammar didn't make sense. I kept forgetting words. And honestly, I often felt like I wasn't good enough. There were moments when I just closed my notebook and thought, maybe this isn't for me. I even stopped learning completely for a while, more than once. But something small kept bringing me back. Not motivation, not discipline, just a quiet feeling that I didn't want to give up forever. So I started again and again and again. I stopped trying to be perfect. I stopped trying to understand everything. Instead, I focused on small progress. Just one sentence, one idea, one moment of understanding. And little by little, it became easier. If you're watching this and you feel stuck, tired, or like giving up, I understand that feeling. It's a very real part of learning. But here's what I've learned: it's not about never quitting, it's about coming back after you quit. So if you've stopped before, you're not starting from zero, you're starting from experience. And maybe today is your moment to begin again. There's something I don't usually say out loud. You see the videos, the confidence, the calm voice, the clear English, but you don't see the beginning. And the truth is, sometimes I was crying. Not once, not rarely. There were many nights when I felt completely overwhelmed. I remember sitting alone with my notebook, staring at a page full of words I couldn't remember. I had just studied them, and somehow they disappeared from my mind like they were never there. I felt this quiet panic growing inside me. Why is this so hard? Why can't I do this? Maybe I'm just not capable. Those thoughts can be very loud when you're alone. Sometimes I would try to watch a simple video in English, something everyone said was easy, and I understood almost nothing. I would pause it, rewind it, listen again, and still feel lost. And in that moment, it didn't feel like learning, it felt like failure. And yes, sometimes I cried. Not dramatic crying, not like in movies, just quiet tears, sitting in silence, feeling tired and disappointed in myself. I didn't tell anyone because from the outside, it looked like I was learning English. But inside, I felt like I was not moving at all. I compared myself to others. That made it worse. Look at them. They speak so easily. Why am I so slow? Why does it take me so long to understand something simple? That kind of thinking is heavy. It makes you want to stop. And I did stop many times. I closed my books. I ignored English for weeks. I told myself, I don't need this. It's too stressful. But here's something I never expected. Even after I gave up, something inside me stayed. A very small voice, not loud, not confident, just quiet. It said, maybe, try again, just a little. And every time I came back, I didn't come back stronger. I came back tired, unsure, even a little afraid to fail again. But I still came back. And slowly, something changed. Not suddenly, not in one big moment, but in very small, almost invisible steps. One day, I understood a sentence without translating it. Another day, I said something in English without thinking too much. Another day, I watched a video and understood the main idea. And those small moments, they didn't feel like success at first, but they were. Looking back now, I understand something important. the hardest part of learning English was not grammar. It was not vocabulary. It was the feeling that I wasn't good enough. And I know many of you feel this too. Maybe you're watching this after a long day. Maybe you tried to study and it didn't go well. Maybe you feel stuck or tired or even a little ashamed. If that's you, I want you to hear this clearly. Struggling does not mean you are failing. Feeling lost does not mean you are incapable. And crying doesn't mean you are weak. It means you care. It means you're trying. It means you are in the process. I don't share this story to be dramatic. I share it because I know how easy it is to look at someone's result and forget their reality. You see my English now, but you didn't see the confusion, the frustration, the pauses, the silence, the tears. And maybe, right now, you are in that part of the story. If you are, please don't leave. Stay with it a little longer. Not perfectly, not every day, not with pressure, just gently. Learn one sentence, listen for 5 minutes, say one thing out loud. That's enough. Because progress doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from staying even when it's uncomfortable. And if one day you feel like quitting again, that's okay. Just don't make it the final decision. Come back, even slowly, even quietly. Just come back. Because one day, without even noticing when it happened, you will understand more. You will speak more. You will feel different. And maybe you'll sit there, smiling a little, thinking, wow, I didn't give up completely. And that will matter more than anything. I'm really glad you're here. And if no one has told you this today, you're doing better than you think. I wanted to be that person who just sits down and studies every day without any struggle. But I wasn't. And accepting that took time. Because there's this quiet pressure we all feel, especially when we learn something difficult. We think we should be consistent, motivated, focused all the time. We think if we're not like that, something is wrong with us. But the truth is, I had days when I avoided English completely, not because I was lazy, but because I was tired of feeling like I wasn't enough. There were moments when even hearing English made me uncomfortable. You know that feeling? When you hear something and instead of curiosity, you feel tension. Like your brain just says, no, not today. I had that. And sometimes I would pretend I was taking a break. But deep inside, I knew I was just afraid to feel that frustration again. Afraid to sit there and not understand. Afraid to try and fail again. I remember once I tried speaking out loud. Just a simple sentence. Something like introducing myself. And I stopped halfway, not because I didn't know the words, but because I suddenly felt embarrassed, alone in my room. It sounds strange, right? But it wasn't about language in that moment. It was about how I felt about myself. I didn't like how I sounded. I didn't like how unsure I was. And I thought, if I sound like this alone, how will I ever speak in front of people? So I stopped. Again. There were also days when I tried really hard. Days when I studied for hours, watched videos, took notes, repeated sentences, and at the end of the day, I still felt like I made no progress. That feeling is one of the most difficult parts of learning something new. When effort doesn't immediately turn into results, it makes you question everything. Why am I doing this? Is this even working? Maybe I'm just not good at languages. And those thoughts, they don't just disappear. They stay quietly in the background. But something interesting started happening over time, very slowly, almost invisibly. Even on the days when I thought I was not improving, something was changing. I didn't notice it immediately. But one day, I heard a sentence and I understood it without translating. And I paused, not because it was difficult, but because it felt different. Like my brain just accepted the meaning without effort. It was such a small moment, but it stayed with me. Another time, I was watching something in English and I realized I wasn't focusing on every word anymore. I was just listening and following. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. And I remember thinking, wait, when did this start happening? Because I didn't feel a big breakthrough. I didn't feel a moment where everything suddenly became clear. It was more like the fog slowly lifting, so slowly that I didn't notice when it began. And that's something I wish someone had told me earlier. Progress in language learning is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a big moment where you suddenly feel ready. It comes in small shifts, in tiny moments, in things you almost ignore. But here's the part that matters the most: all those moments. They only happened because I kept coming back. Not perfectly, not consistently, not with motivation every day. But I didn't leave completely. Even when I stopped for weeks, I returned. Even when I felt embarrassed, I tried again. Even when I doubted myself, I didn't close the door forever. And I think that's the real difference. Not talent, not intelligence, not even discipline, just not leaving completely. If you're listening to this now, maybe you're somewhere in that difficult part. Maybe you're in that quiet moment where nothing seems to work. Maybe you're tired of trying. Maybe you feel like you've already failed too many times. If that's where you are, I understand that feeling, not as an idea, but as something very real. And I don't want to tell you something simple like, just keep going, because I know it's not that easy. Instead, I want to tell you something more honest. You don't need to be strong every day. You don't need to feel motivated. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to leave a small door open. That's it. Pert. Maybe today you don't study for an hour. Maybe today you don't do grammar. Maybe today all you can do is listen to something for 5 minutes. That's okay. Because that small connection, it keeps you in the process. And if one day you feel overwhelmed again, if one day you feel like closing everything and walking away, do it. Take that space. But don't tell yourself it's over. Tell yourself, I'll come back later. Even if later is in a week or 2 weeks or a month, because every time you come back, you're not starting from zero. You're returning with experience, with memory, with something already built inside you, even if you don't feel it yet. And maybe one day, you'll be sitting somewhere listening to English, and suddenly you'll realize it's not as hard as it used to be, and you won't even remember the exact moment it changed. But it will, quietly, gently, just like it did for me. And there's something else I haven't told you yet. The hardest moments were not always when I didn't understand English. Sometimes the hardest moments were when I almost understood, but not enough. That in between stage, where you catch a few words, you recognize the structure, you feel like you should understand, but the meaning just slips away. That feeling can be even more frustrating than understanding nothing, because it creates this strange illusion: I'm close, so why can't I get it? And in that moment, your brain doesn't celebrate progress, it focuses on what's missing. And there's one moment I don't talk about often because it still feels very personal. There was a day when I didn't just feel frustrated, I felt completely empty, not angry, not even sad in a loud way, just empty. I opened my notebook again, like I had done so many times before. Same desk, same pen, same quiet room. But this time, I didn't feel anything. No motivation, no curiosity, no hope. Just a quiet thought. What's the point? That question is dangerous because it doesn't come with emotion. It comes with silence. And silence can slowly make you stop trying. I remember sitting there for a long time doing nothing. And then I closed the notebook very slowly, not in frustration, just quietly, like I was letting go. That night, I didn't study. The next day, I didn't either. And then more days passed. At first, it felt like relief, no pressure, no confusion, no feeling of failure, just space. But after some time, something else appeared. Not motivation, something softer, a kind of absence, like something important was missing. I started noticing small things, a phrase in English somewhere, a sentence I used to recognize, a sound that felt familiar. And there was this quiet feeling inside me. I used to try, not I was good, not I was successful, just I was trying. And I realized something in that moment. It wasn't just about English anymore. It was about a part of me that was growing. And when I stopped completely, that part became silent. So one day, very gently, I came back, not with a plan, not with energy, just with a small action. I listened to something for a few minutes. That's it. And it felt strange, like returning to a place you haven't visited in a long time, familiar but distant. I didn't understand much. I didn't feel confident. But I stayed for a few minutes. And then I stopped again. But something had changed. The door was open again. And that's something I want you to understand deeply. You don't need to come back perfectly. You don't need to come back strong. You just need to come back a little. There were also moments when I felt ashamed. That's a hard word, but it's honest. Ashamed that I couldn't say simple things. Ashamed that I needed more time. Ashamed that others seemed to move faster. And shame is heavy because it makes you hide. It makes you avoid. It makes you stay silent. There were times when I didn't want anyone to hear my English, not because it was terrible, but because it wasn't how I wanted it to be. And that gap between who you are and who you want to be, it can hurt. But over time, I started seeing that gap differently. That gap is not failure, it's direction. It shows you where you're going. And every time you try, even imperfectly, you move a little closer. I also want to tell you about fear, because fear was always there, not loud, but present. Fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding wrong, fear of being judged. And sometimes that fear stopped me more than difficulty itself, because learning something new is not just about understanding, it's about being seen while you're still learning, and that feels vulnerable. But one day, I made a small decision. I allowed myself to be imperfect in front of others, not confidently, not proudly, just honestly. And nothing terrible happened. No one laughed, no one judged me harshly. People listened, they understood. Some even supported me. And that moment changed something very important. I realized that most of the pressure was coming from me. And maybe you feel that too. Maybe you are harder on yourself than anyone else would ever be. Maybe you expect yourself to speak perfectly before you even allow yourself to speak. If that's you, I understand. But I want to gently tell you this. You are allowed to learn out loud. You are allowed to pause, to search for words, to make mistakes. That's not failure, that's participation. And participation is how growth happens. There were also quiet victories, moments no one saw, moments I didn't even celebrate properly at the time. Understanding a joke, following a conversation, thinking in English for a few seconds. At first, I ignored those moments because they felt too small. But now I see they were everything. Because big progress is built from small, repeated moments, not from one big breakthrough. And maybe right now, you are having those small moments too, but you don't notice them because you're focused on what you can't do yet. So, let me say it clearly, what you can do matters, even if it feels small, even if it feels incomplete. It matters. And one more thing. There were days when I didn't believe in myself at all, not even a little. On those days, I didn't try to fix that feeling. I didn't try to force confidence. I just stayed close to the process. Sometimes that meant listening without understanding. Sometimes that meant repeating one sentence again and again. Sometimes that meant doing almost nothing, but not leaving completely. And slowly, very slowly, something inside me became more stable. Not confident, but steady. And steadiness is stronger than motivation because motivation comes and goes, but steadiness stays. So if you don't feel motivated right now, it's okay. You don't need motivation to continue. You just need a small connection, a small action, a small step. And I promise you, even if it feels invisible now, it is building something inside you, something real, something lasting. And one day, you will feel it. Not all at once, but in a quiet moment. And you'll think, I didn't give up. And that will mean more than anything. And maybe that's the part I want to leave you with today. Not some perfect ending. Not a strong, confident, you can do anything speech. Just something real. If you've been struggling, if you've been tired, if you've stopped and started again more times than you can count, you're not behind. You're human. And this journey you're on, it's not supposed to feel easy all the time. It's not supposed to be clean or perfect or fast. It's supposed to be yours. I know how it feels to sit alone and wonder if you're making any progress. I know how it feels to doubt yourself quietly. I know how it feels to want to be better, but not know how to get there. And if no one has told you this honestly, I'm really proud of you for still being here. Even if being here just means listening, even if it means you haven't studied in days, even if it means you're just thinking about starting again, that still counts. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to stay a little bit connected to the language, to the process, and most importantly, to yourself. And if one day you feel like everything is too much again, if you feel that quiet voice saying, maybe stop, you can rest, you can pause, but don't close the door completely. Leave it slightly open for yourself, for the version of you that still wants to try. Because that version of you is still there. Even if it feels small, even if it feels quiet, it's there and it matters. I started this journey feeling lost, confused, and honestly, not good enough. And I didn't become someone different. I just stayed long enough to grow, slowly, gently, imperfectly. And you can do the same, in your own time, in your own way. So, wherever you are right now, at the very beginning, in the middle, or somewhere lost in between, I'm really glad our paths met here, even for a moment. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying, and thank you for not giving up completely. We'll keep going together. And before you go, there's one more small thing I want to share with you. Recently, I started something very personal to me. I opened this YouTube channel. And honestly, it wasn't easy. Not because of technical things, not because of content, but because it felt like I was showing a part of myself that used to struggle, doubt, and feel unsure. This channel is not just about teaching English. It's about sharing the real journey, the slow progress, the quiet moments, the confusion, and the growth. It's a place where you don't have to be perfect, where you can just learn, listen, and breathe a little. So, if something in this video felt close to you, if you felt understood, even a little, I would really love for you to stay, not just for the lessons, but for the journey. If you want, you can subscribe to the channel, not as a click or a number, but as a small connection between us, like saying, I'm here too. And I promise I'll keep showing up here honestly, not perfectly, but sincerely, with everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning. Thank you for being here with me. It means more than you probably think. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you again very soon.